He is anxious that the ministrants of Osiris in the Neder Kar, who deal with a man according to the course of his life, may not give a bad odor to his name. 3ob. And again he pleads, let me be glorified through my attributes, let me be estimated according to my merits. Ch 72. It is plainly apparent that the future fate of the soul was dependent on the deeds that were done in the body, and the character of the deceased was accreted according to his conduct in the life on earth. The jury sitting in the judgment hall consisted of 42 masters of truth. Their duty was to discover the truth with fierce interrogation and the instinct of sleuth-hounds on their track. Was this Manes a true man? Had he lived a true life? Was he true at heart when this was tested in the scales? His viscera were present for inspection, and these keen scrutinizers in their animal-headed forms were very terrible, not only in visage, for they had a vested interest in securing a verdict of guilty against the Manes, inasmuch as the viscera of the condemned were flung to them as perquisites and prey. Therefore, they searched with the zeal of hunger for the evidence of evil living that might be found written on this record of the inner man. Piecemeal the Manes were examined, to be passed if true, to be sent back if not, in the shape of swine or goats or other Typhonian animals, and driven down into the fiery lake of outer darkness, where Baba the devourer of hearts, the Egyptian raw head and bloody bones, was lying in wait for them. The highest verdict rendered by the great judge in this most awful judgment hall was a testimony to the truth and purity of character established for the Manes on evidence that was unimpeachable. At this post-mortem, the sins done in the body through violating the law of nature were probed for most profoundly. Not only was the deceased present in spirit to be judged at the dread tribunal, the book of the body was opened and its record read. The vital organs, such as the heart, liver, and lungs, were brought into judgment as witnesses to the life lived on earth. Any part too vitiated for the rottenness to be cut off or scraped away was condemned and flung as awful to the powers who are called the eaters of filth, the devourers of hearts, and drinkers of the blood of the wicked. And if the heart, for example, should be condemned to be devoured because very bad, the individual could not be reconstructed for a future life. In order that the Osiris may pass the great assize as one of the justified, he must have made the word of Osiris truth on earth against his enemies. He must have lived a righteous life and been just, truthful, merciful, charitable, humane. In coming to the hall of judgment or justice to look on the divine countenance and be cleansed from all the sins he may have committed, he says, I have come to thee, O my Lord. I know thee. Lord of righteousness is thy name. I bring to thee right. I have put a stop to wrong. His plea is that he has done his best to fulfill the character of Horus, Maheru. Some of his pleas are very touching. He has not exacted from the laborer as the first fruits of each day more work than was justly due to him. He has not snatched the milk from the mouths of babes and sucklings. He has not been a land grabber. He has not dammed the running water. He has caused no famine, no weeping, no suffering to men, and has not been a robber of food. He has not tampered with the tongue of the balance, nor been fraudulent, mean, or sordid of soul. There is a goodly list of pre-Christian virtues besides all the theoretical Christian ones. Amongst others he says, I have propitiated the God with that which he loveth. This was especially by the offering of Mot, viz., justice, truth, and righteousness. I have given bread to the hungry, water to the thirsty, clothes to the naked, and a boat to the shipwrecked. Ch. 125. Yet we have been told that charity and mercy were totally unknown to the pagan world. He asks the 42 assessors for the great judge not to go against him, for he did the right thing in Tamarit, the land of Egypt. His heart is weighed in the scales of justice. He passes pure as one of those who are welcomed by Horus for his own faithful followers, the blessed of his father, to whom it is said, Come, come in peace. Horus the intercessor, advocate, or paraclete, now takes him by the hand and leads him into the presence of Osiris in the sanctuary. The Manes in the judgment hall is black-haired, as seen in the pictures of Ani, Papyrus of Ani, Pi. 4. But when he kneels before Osiris on the throne, his hair is white. He is passed as one of the purified and is on his way to join the ranks of the just spirits made perfect, who are called the glorified. The attendants say to him, "We put an end to thy ills, and we remove that which is disorderly in thee through thy being smitten to the earth in death." These were the ills of mortality from which he has now been freed in spirit. Here occurs the resurrection of the Osiris in the person of Horus, and it is said, "Ha, Osiris one, thou hast come, and thy Ka with thee, which unite with thee in thy name of Ka, Hetep." 128. An ordinary rendering of Ka-Hetep would be image of peace equals type of attainment, but as the word Hetep or Hepti also means number 7, that coincides with the Ka being an image of the septenary of souls, complete at last to be unified in the hawk-headed Horus. In the book or papyrus, roll for invoking the gods of the Kurti, or boundaries, we find the speaker has now reached the limit of Amenta. He says, "I am the soul of Osiris, and rest in him." Hymn 27. He is hailed as one who has attained his Ka and received his insignia of the resurrection. It is now said to the Osiris, "Ha, Osiris, thou hast received thy scepter, thy pedestal, and the flight of stairs beneath thee." Writ, ch. 128. The scepter was the hair-headed symbol of the resurrection first carried by Ptah the Opener. The pedestal is the papyrus of Horus, and the stairs denote the means of ascent from Amenta to the summit of the Mount of Glory. He is now prepared and empowered to enter the bark of Ra, which voyages from east to west by day and from west to east by night. Before entering the bark, the Osiris has attained to every one of his stations in Amenta, previously to sailing for the circumpolar paradise upon the stellar Mount of Glory. Chapter 130 is the book by which the soul is made to live forever on the day of entering the bark of Ra, which means that it contains the gnosis of the subject. It was made for the birthday or rebirthday of Osiris. Osiris is reborn in Horus as the type of an eternal soul. Hence the speaker says in this character, "I am coffined in an ark like Horus, to whom his cradle, or nest of reeds, is brought." He is reborn as Horus on his papyrus, an earlier figure on the water than the bark of Ra. He prays, "Let not the Osiris be shipwrecked on the great voyage. Keep the steering tackle free from misadventure." When he entered Amenta, the deceased in Osiris bore the likeness of the god in mummy form. Before he comes forth from the lower Aru garden, he can say, at the end of certain transformations in type and personality, "I am the soul of Osiris, and I rest in him." 127. This is in the character of Horus. "I am Horus on this auspicious day, at the beautiful coming forth from Amenta." He has reached the boundary, and now invokes the god who is in his solar disk, otherwise in the bark of Ra. He died in Osiris to live again in Horus, son of God, or in his likeness. Chapters 141 and 142 begin the book of making the Osiris perfect, and this, as the ritual shows, was in the likeness of Horus, the beloved soul-begotten son of Ra, the god and spirit. Now, when the manes had included his Ka in the name of Ka-Hetep, writ 128, it is said to the deceased in the pyramid texts Teta 284, Pepi I 34, "Horus hath brought to pass that his Ka, which is in thee, should unite with thee in thy name of Ka-Hetep," which shows the Ka within him was the image of Horus divinized. This corroborates the suggestion that the Ka type was derived from Ka, later Asa, the son of Adam Ra, who was earlier than Horus as the son of Osiris. Thus the divine sonship of humanity, which was personified in Horus or Iu or Sa, was also typified in the Ka image of a higher spiritual self. And when the Mons had attained the status of a spirit perfected, it was in the form of the divine Son, who was the express image of the Father God. He was Horus the beloved in all reality, through perfecting the ideal type in his own personality.